Instagram and YouTube. Hey, it's Gordon Miller. Hey, it's live at 5. We're 1 minute late. So I am here on my back porch, and hopefully everybody is having a good Friday. I'll sit up a little straighter there. There you go. But hope everybody's doing well on this coronavirus lockdown Friday. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what we might want to cover today. Man, the light is never really very good anymore back here. I'll have to start doing it from the front porch. But anyway, I hope your Friday is going well. And I was going to cover a couple of different things today. Let's see here. Forgot my ashtray. That's not going to work. But anyway, I was talking with some friends of mine about process, and one of the things that it's important to really kind of get a handle on is when you have defects, in your process. You want to make sure that it can be attributed to the people, it can be attributed to some of the tools you're using, and it can be attributed to to the actual process itself. So it's often difficult to know exactly what is the root cause unless you trace it back. And so often it's the traceability that's important. So one of the things can be, I'll give you an example. All right. So in the example we discussed, the client's logo was not represented on the website that was being done properly, and so what happened was is that the site had to be redone several times to compensate for the logo being done properly here, and. Here, hang on a second. Let me adjust the height again. Using a different tripod this time. There you go. And the light's horrible anyway. Sorry about that. But anyway, in the example that we were using as a teaching tool, we were talking about the process of let's see. Well, welcome to Live at 5. I'm Gordon Miller, and I've been rolling for 3 minutes on YouTube and didn't realize that I hadn't pushed the live button. So wondered why nobody had joined. So now I know. Here, let me, all right. So, welcome to Live at 5. It's Gordon Miller, and I'm glad all of you could join us. I hope everything's going well on this coronavirus Friday on day, 1069 of our lockdown here. So, what I started talking about before I realized I hadn't pushed the actual go live button on Instagram was I was discussing process in terms of how projects typically come down to problems with people or personnel, problems with process, or problems with the tools. And I used an example that I went through with a buddy of mine where for instance, one of the logos on the site for the client didn't get represented properly. And it's not just a matter of defect tracking. It's a matter of doing the traceability and being able to understand where the error is coming from, and not necessarily just who's responsible, but what part of the process broke down. So there were three or so, 2 or 3 cycles of revisions, and the revisions included fixing the logo so that it was accurate. And come to find out, the problem could have been either on the part of one of the personnel, so either the person coding it or the person who was designing it. It could have been a issue with the tools itself, which happens from time to time. Different tools work different ways. Could be somebody just doesn't know how to use that tool very well, or it could be a problem in the process itself. I mean, why did that error occur 3 different times? And so we went through the process. So my team and I went through the Carnegie Mellon Software Engineering Institute (SEI) Capability Maturity Model (CMM) Level 2 and Level 3 process training back in 2000 to 2003, and we did most of the certifications all in 1 year for both Level 2 and Level 3, which is actually pretty difficult. But we went through the process with a large team that was run by SAIC, Science Applications International Corporation, and it was great. So, hey Dick, hey, thanks for joining. Anyway, the process that we learned in doing that software development project with the Army really helped us understand the nature of some of those problems that people are running into. And so the great thing is that most people will track their defects and try to solve the problems, but they never really investigate the root cause of the problem in the first place. Why did that error occur? What was the actual cause of it, so you can avoid doing it again. Sometimes it comes down to, I was eyeballing it, and I guess I screwed up. Sometimes it's the person isn't familiar with the tool, or the tool itself wasn't what they hoped it would be. They were in a hurry or whatever. But in this particular case, we realized that the logo had been rendered incorrectly in the original designs, and because there was a separate design person and a separate coding person, then the coding and the design were not connected. They were connected in the workflow via the process, but they weren't facilitated, or the connection wasn't facilitated by the tools. And there wasn't a great deal of communication between the design person and the coding person. And ironically, the logo got rendered just like the design. Unfortunately, that was incorrect. So part of the challenge is to understand what the process is and how the process needs to change in order to be able to anticipate where errors might be made. Sometimes it's a matter of, that person didn't measure, or didn't pay attention to it, or just grabbed the wrong thing. And I've done it before where I'll shift click something and I'll hit control or something instead, and it makes a copy and make one smaller and things like that. So it's hard to know until you get the thing on there and realize, well, gosh, I've made this thing a different aspect ratio, and I'm pretty keen on that. So in this particular case, it came down to a breakdown across the board. So it wasn't necessarily negligent intent by the individual. It wasn't an incompetent team member, not necessarily. It wasn't necessarily that the tools themselves were bad. Maybe they thought they grabbed the corner so it would scale, and things like that ended up not hitting it. They hit the shift caps lock key instead of the shift key or something like that. So it depends. I mean, there's all kinds of things like that can happen. But the problem is that this ended up being a very expensive error, because the error persisted across multiple phases of the design into the final client approval process, and that's where it can get really expensive. And so if the issue was caught early on, because the logo was brought to the attention of the coder, and the coder referred to the diagrams that the designer had provided, and the coder's like, yeah, logo looks great to me. I mean, it's and so it wasn't necessarily that issue that they didn't know what the actual issue was, and it really took tracing it all back. So as we were using this as an example, as a learning experience, it was a matter of going back through the process and determining where that was, and understanding that multiple people had reviewed and checked off this design issue, and it continued to remain on the client's checklist as things that needed to be done. Unfortunately, because there again, it was the fact that the tools were not connected. You couldn't use the design tool and have a coding version that connected in any way. The lack of communication between the team members for the designer and the coder, and also the just general lack of understanding by the coder based on the reference material and things like that. So it was an interesting example, but it's one that really kind of helps accentuate the idea that when you work in teams, a lot of there's a lot of individual responsibility, and there's a lot of what I refer to as air traffic control, which I think is important to keep any project on track. But there's also an enormous amount of interpersonal communication, as well as inter-tool communication that is often helpful. And so we'll see. I mean, it's as people evolve and progress in their companies and things like that, they end up really learning these techniques. And it's one of the things that after a couple of discussions today with my editor that I'm working with, and realizing that I always wanted a blueprint when I was in business. And I realized that, when somebody's starting out, I mean, you just start your first company at 20 or 21. And, I started my first company when I was 28, almost 29. So I had the benefit of 7, almost 8 or 9 more years of experience than some of you guys that are starting young. So I already had a lot more experience, and it took me another 7 years of running my own company before I really ran into this process. So it was really 14 or 15 years after I started the company that I really began to adapt these kinds of really amazing processes. And so, I think that I'm going to work on a series of items, either for a book or for more online content that talks about what some of these processes are like. So as you start looking at building your own organization and hiring your own people and working through that, understand that you can have great people with tools that really are not optimized for the performance, the task at hand, and you can have processes that are uninformed or broken. And so it's a matter of using a template for the best processes possible. It's about using the most connected tools that you can, and it's about hiring the best quality people that you can in order to be able to maximize the use of those tools. And I used an example this morning. The idea is that and this is just for example, if you had somebody that you were paying $50 an hour to, and you had 2 of those people, and they were putting in 100 hours apiece, then it cost you about $10,000. But if there's a problem with the tools or the communication, rework is about 20%, so you're going to end up with about $12,000 worth of expense. Well, typically you're only going to have about 20% profit margin on those things anyway, and so that's going to create a situation where you just ate up all your profit. You made $0 on that because of the problem with the 2 people. But if you have one person that can do both those jobs, that in this example can design and code, and you pay them $75 instead of $50 an hour, and they can do it in about 120 hours instead of 200 hours because there's less rework and more overlap, and you use tools that are integrated, then you can do the same work for about $9,000. And then you can also have as much as 10% rework, and that's about $9,900. And in that example, you still stick within your $10,000. You still make your $2,000 margin. So the difference between realizing a profit and losing money on a deal really comes down to the people that you pick, the quality of work that they're able to do, either by the level of communication, and so that's really kind of my assessment in that it's not a matter of hiring people and paying them as little as possible. You need people that are highly functional, that produce the appropriate level of value, that can get work done quickly with a low error rate in order to be able to justify the amount of time and money that is being spent on them. again, the whole point of being in business is to make a profit. And in this example, you get a pretty good idea about how your internal cost is $9,900 in one, and you're going to add a margin of at least 20% on that, and charge the client $12,000. And in the other example, you're going to spend $12,000 internally, probably after already quoting the client $12,000. And again, it comes down to, is it the wrong people? Is it the wrong tools? Is it the wrong process? It could be a little bit of both, or a little bit of all three. So anyway, so that was just, I thought I'd start out today's video with a little bit of a lesson from today's discussions. Sorry, trying to keep this lit. And hope that that's helpful to some of you all who are running your own companies, starting your own companies, working with people on your teams, trying to figure out, how to keep from losing money in different types of projects. And so I'll try to have some more of those kind of examples. And I have potentially some more, insight into, different relationship things as well. We'll see what everybody's level of interest is in whatever it is. But I wanted to at least provide a little bit of insight into things as we went forward here. If somebody who wants to come on live on Instagram, let's see here. Are you coming on? There we go. We're connecting. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I guess they decided not to. So anyway, let's work back through some of the comments and questions here. If you've got something you'd like. All right. Been following you from Quora. Thanks. Appreciate that. Hey, Dick. Thanks for joining. Curious to know if and when you're doing business, how do you keep yourself motivated, even if you love what you do? Well, motivation's an important aspect. I love what I do, so for me, it doesn't seem like work. I enjoy working with entrepreneurs, helping them build, their own business, and participating in the success those businesses have, and things like that. So it's been a great experience for me so far. When I was doing it before, I had a family to feed, and the motivation was usually I get to do some great stuff that not a lot of people get to do. So it really kind of depends. The motivation is unique to you, because it's whatever motivates you. For me, it was participating in really amazing projects. Our early projects with the Department of Defense, with the Navy and the Army, were terrific projects. My work on the SMART messaging portal for the State Department, our work on Health and Human Services, all of which were phenomenal projects to be involved in. Our work with Department of Homeland Security, all that stuff was great. I enjoyed being a part of those opportunities. That not everybody got a chance to participate in those kind of projects. So work-life balance. So I have I have another video on work-life balance, but I'll mention it here. When I first started out, there wasn't a great deal of work-life balance. I started the company in '93. I was married to my first wife at that time, and I was working 8 hours a day at the university, and then working 8 hours a day or more, 8 to 10 hours a day at the company. So I was working like 18 hours a day and sleeping 4 or 5 hours, and we did get a chance to see each other, maybe an hour or two a day. And, she put up with that for a very short period of time. And when it was pretty clear that, she's like, either choose me or the company. So, sorry, babe, I chose the company. But, so it wasn't a difficult choice for me. I really didn't want the kind of, academic only kind of lifestyle and things like that. I enjoyed working for the university, and I look forward to working for another university at some point again. I enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed being in the classroom, and I enjoyed working with the next generation of people who were going to do amazing things. And that first crop of students in 89 and 90 and 91 did amazing things. I mean, over the last 30 years, I'm really so proud of all those folks. They were 20 something, 22, 23. I mean, hell, I was 26, 27, 28. So, I was not much older, but had the good fortune to be able to plug into an opportunity at the university. And I really enjoyed that. But I mean, keep myself motivated and keeping that work-life balance. I learned the hard way once I got married the second time that if I wanted to start a family and I wanted to stay married, then I was going to have to commit myself to having a more balanced existence. And we did it in a pretty significant way. My wife controls, I control what happens Monday at 9 a.m. through Friday at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. So when we're done going live at 5 here, it's the official start of date night. And we have tried consistently until coronavirus lockdown to do date night and go out to dinner somewhere. And we've done this for much of the last 22 years. I mean, the secret to staying married for 22 years is to never stop dating. In fact, I have a story somewhere on my YouTube channel. We're actually still on our first date. We went out, picked her up at the university that she was working at in Mississippi, took her home to see her parents for spring break, and I didn't take her back. So I didn't kidnap her. She stayed on her own accord, but her coworkers packed her stuff up, UPS'd it all to her. She quit her job, and she decided to stay, and that was 22 years ago. So back in March. So I knew that it was going to be a great opportunity to strike the right work-life balance. We focused on her traveling with me before we had kids, and then when we started having kids, she was home during the week, and I was usually home during the week. I was traveling for a few years in there when I was working on the State Department stuff and things like that. But for the most part, I was home. And then on the weekends, after date night on Friday night, from Friday at like 9 o'clock until Sunday midnight or Monday morning at 9 o'clock, then she controls all of that. So, and that's when we do soccer games and robotics competitions and track meets and all the other stuff for the kids, and we do grocery shopping together and all the other stuff. So, it's been great. I mean, so it takes getting the right kind of work-life balance in order to be able to, it was a huge motivation for me, because having a family and having kids and stuff like that was a huge thing, and it was necessary to make a commitment to being in a relationship and having a marriage and working at that as hard as I worked on it with the business and things like that. And so it's just a matter of allocating days, 5 days allocated to work, 2 days allocated to the family. And just like on Pursuit of Happiness, the movie, it's like, you have to make better use of that time if you don't have a whole lot of other time. So other people got to work 7 days a week. I wanted a family, so I wasn't about to compromise that. So I ended up, deciding to prioritize, and I just had to work that much harder during the week. So, but it was important for that. So, but I appreciate the question. Hey, Gordon, what are some of your tips to build wealth at a young age and learn as much as possible? So the tips are pretty simple. My advice is detailed in both my Quora answers as well as other places and videos and things like that. The main thing is to live on about half of what you make and invest and save the other half. And in terms of investing, I prefer index funds of the Dow and the S&P 500, about 40% in each. 10% in cash reserves that you keep cash on hand, and another 10% in a speculative account where you can pick stocks or gold or cryptocurrency or whatever you want, and with the idea that if it goes to zero, you don't care. It's only 10% of your total holdings, and so it's not that big a deal. So The idea though is that it's really about living on half of what you make. So if you make $50,000 a year, you need to try to live on $25,000, and then that's kind of tough because a lot of places, rent's $2,000 a month. But you live with enough people, you do what you need to do in order to increase that salary. Then eventually you end up with an opportunity to do something much better than that. But the big thing is really to invest between $500 and $1,000 a month into those funds. So the idea of an index fund of the Dow and S&P 500, the goal is to have $1,000 a month minimum. So even if you make $3,000 a month or $3,600 a month net, putting $1,000 a month away and living on $2,600 is what you should do. You should pay cash for your cars, buy the cheapest car you can, keep it running, live on next to nothing, now, so that when you get older, the joy of compounded interest and the joy of watching your investment grow. If you start when you're 20, by the time you're 60, after 40 years, if properly invested based on the way those funds have made a return over the last 70 years on average, you'll have between $1.2 and $1.8 million, depending on the overall performance of the various funds. So that's enough to retire comfortably, withdraw some decent money, and continue to work through that. Now, of course, inflation and other things will continue to adjust that as well, but the idea is that you're going to need at least $1 million, and that's one way to get $1.2 million or $1.8 million in your account. All right, let's see what we got here. When starting a company, it is important to be able to do some of the core tech yourself. Yeah, I really do think it is. When I started my company, my focus was in interface design and workflow optimization. And I would build mobile applications. Our very first mobile app was in 2001, long before the iPhone came out, on Windows Mobile for the Army. And it was one of those kind of things where we did desktop apps and interactive multimedia, a bunch of other stuff like that. So I was an expert back. I won a New Media Magazine and Vision Award back in 1994, and I followed that up with two other awards in 1997. So I had become sort of a recognized expert in the field in multimedia. We built interactive textbooks for all the major textbook publishers and things like that. And then that naturally progressed into online education and enterprise applications and other stuff like that. So let's see what we got here. But yeah, I did a lot of the core tech myself when I first got started. Hey, Colson. Hey, hon. Can you grab my ashtray off the bar, please? Let's see. We got somebody else wants to go live. Oh, looks like they left. All right. Thanks. Appreciate that. So let's see. One of the other questions is, would I recommend getting a ceramic coating or some other coating on a car? No, those are upsells. Yeah, I'm sitting on the back porch of my house. Was one of the questions. Going over here to YouTube. Let's see what the questions are. Sorry to focus on the YouTube ones. Your dad was an MP, but you choose not to follow that path. How do you think you've fared in the military in another life? Your discipline and work ethic are legendary, so I think you'd been great. Well, thanks. Hello, I appreciate that. My father served in the U.S. Army as a military police officer. He was assigned to Berlin in 60-61 during the Berlin Wall crisis. I've told the story before about how he and his partner were out on patrol. They were ambushed by a group of kids, youths, and not too much younger than they were, but my father was in his early 20s, so there were several of those guys, and they ended up killing his partner. And so Dad drew his weapon, and the guy that was the leader of the gang of thugs is supposedly said, you only have 7 shots, you can't kill all of us. And my father reports as having said, yeah, okay, which one of you motherfuckers want to go first? And so they all scattered, and my father tried to resuscitate his partner and call for help. And unfortunately, his partner passed away. But my father achieved the marksman level with a pistol, which was hard to do with a 1911 government issue A1 pistol back in 1961. He taught me to shoot. I started shooting when I was 8 with air guns, air pistols, air rifles, and then moved to 22s when I was around 10. And then by the time I was 12, he had instructed me on how to fire a 1911 45, and it's still my favorite weapon to carry. I typically carry something all the time, and my favorite weapon to carry is a 1911 45. So let's see. Let's see about the other questions on YouTube here. All right. Good afternoon, Gordon. Is that a Robusto cigar? No, Robustos are a lot smaller. This is a Cohiba Black Edition Gigante, 52 ring gauge, incredible smoke, dark wrapper, smooth, full flavored, just an amazing cigar. Real Cohibas, Cohiba Habanos, among my favorite, but again, not legal here in the U.S. So the closest thing I've found to it are these amazing cigars. All right, let's see what we got here. Hey, Gordon, can I ask a quick question? What are your tips to creating wealth at a young age? Well, yeah, we talked about that. What skills are required to start a company? I addressed that in some of the other videos. So you really have to have 3 skills that you absolutely must have. Number 1 is you must be able to sell. You're going to have to sell your client on whatever they need. You're going to have to know what the sales process is like. I recommend traditional sales, sales books or techniques that, everything from Zig Ziglar, the original sales guy. Dale Carnegie did some sales stuff. So I prefer the stuff from the 1950s on sales. Sales hasn't really changed a lot in the technology age, and the real sales people were back in the 1950s. That's when my father started in sales, and he sold encyclopedias door to door, and so that's where real salespeople come from. The second thing you need to know is you need to be enough of an software architect. If you're going to be a technology company, you have to know enough to know how all the pieces fit together so that you can interact with the technical people. And then the third thing that you have to have is you have to have air traffic control. You have to, and that's what I refer to as sort of project management capability. You have to be able to manage the project. You have to be able to manage people. You have to be able to manage the budget. You have to be able to manage all of those things all at the same time and stay on top of everything so that you make a profit. And so those are my advice for the skills you need. All right, let's see what else we got here. I'm going into college as a finance major. I've been looking at the career options for finance, and I'm not sure anymore. I'm now leaning towards computer science, but I'm worried that might be too hard. Could you tell me how viable a finance major is right now? Well, I got news for you. I don't care. The market could be up or the market could be down, but right now, international business and finance is the number one thing you can be going into. Even if the world is in the middle of a global collapse or imploding, they're still going to need to have people that know what's going on in the world of finance. In fact, my oldest son is in his second year, just finished his second year, going into his third year of college, and he is for sure focusing on international business and finance, and he's amazing at it. So yeah. As far as computer science being hard, well, yeah, I mean, anything you don't know or don't do well is going to be hard. So I don't know that that's necessarily going to do you any good one way or the other. But yep. Let me see here. There's also a lot of people that currently try to be computer programmers because they think it's going to make a difference. But there's a lot of computer programmers out there. It's said on your LinkedIn that you spent 2 years on your PhD and that you completed your PhD the year you founded G3. How did you manage that, and what kept you motivated? So I'll have to check. I'll have to check LinkedIn, but I believe that if you take another look, my PhD classes were in 2 separate sections because they were at that time 2 separate departments. Now, because I was faculty and I saw an opportunity for the university to benefit from moving these 2 together, I took classes in both areas, in industrial and systems engineering and in computer science. And so I took classes from about 91, end of 91, beginning of 92, to on up through 1995. And I started the company in 93, November of 93. The company got to be so busy by 1996 that I couldn't continue anymore. So I had pretty much finished all my coursework, but I didn't have time to finish my dissertation within the 7 years. So unfortunately, if I want to complete that, I have to go back and start all over, which I doubt very seriously I'll do at this point. Let's see here. A colleague of mine married his childhood sweetheart and has been with her. They were 14 respectively. They're 32 now, and another have a great relationship. Date night is the key. Yeah, date night for sure is the key. So, we'll go till about 6 o'clock, 6:15. Then I got to get ready for date night. So that colleague and his wife have some rituals. For example, every anniversary, they always have ribs at the same local pub. Do you have any rituals like that with my wife? Yeah, no, I do. I mean, we have places we prefer to go. We have, usually if it's a restaurant, I have a number of clients that own restaurants as well that we do work with, either their social media, their web stuff, or things like that. So I usually have my own table at most of the restaurants that we go to, but we also try new things. We have places we enjoy going. We also try new places every now and then, so it works out well. All right, let's see what we got here. All right. How did you do a PhD in computer science? Your design major was less math courses compared to computer science major. How did you learn that much math so quickly? I had taken the math AP, and I had taken all advanced courses, everything from calculus to trigonometry and everything else when I was in high school. Because of the advanced nature of what I took, I offered to take a placement test, which the university offered, and I needed to score a 75 on it, and I scored a 75, so I didn't have to take any of the complex math classes associated with that. All right, let's see here. Hell of a story. Must say my question wasn't answered, though. I'm curious. Oh, yeah, so how do I think I would have fared in the military? Could you work under an NCO, a non-commissioned officer? So I don't know. I mean, I've done a lot of work with the Department of Defense. We work with soldiers all the time. We built the Army training portal at trained.army.mil. I designed the original interface for that, and so 400,000 soldiers a day live and die by logging into my system. It's been online for the last 20 some years, so it's something that I enjoy doing, working with soldiers, and I have a lot of respect for them. Yeah, I mean, I doubt very seriously I'd be the take order kind of guy, but I mean, I did work under Colonel Bob Reddy, who was the commanding colonel for U.S. Army TRADOC at the time that we worked on the project. It was his project. He came in out of retirement in order to be able to run the project. An amazing commander, amazing soldier, amazing man. He's in my mentor videos, just because Frank Polster and Colonel Bob Reddy were amazing individuals to work with. And I owe much of what I've learned during that 5-year process to them. I really do. So am I the kind of dress up in green and tranche through the mud kind of guy? No, probably not. I only have one kidney, so it was removed at age 4. So football and being a soldier was never an option. There's no medical ability for that. So I didn't grow up with any of that as an option. It just, medically not possible. So who knows? Well, let's see here. Since you like being your own boss, my brother is like that and dropped out of the Army for that reason. Yeah, I'm sure. What do you think about quantum tunneling problem in microprocessor software getting heavier and quantum processors are not developing at a fast rate? What will be the solution to this problem? I don't really know, that much about quantum processing. On the hardware side, I try to stay out of it. It just really doesn't interest me. I mean, computers are going to get faster. I'm more interested in the interfaces that drive the value behind whatever that is. So the next question on YouTube is, what do I think of the C8 Corvette? Well, we'll see. I mean, I've not driven one yet, so I don't actually know. The dealership here is supposed to have a couple that have come in on order. I have not seen them driving around yet. I don't know if the virus has delayed delivery or not. I haven't been keeping track of those things. I know they're going for a premium, so people were paying upwards of between 100 and 125,000. And I also see some people who've got their car delivered and can't pick it up, so they're selling for 85,000. So we'll see. I mean, I'm sure it's a hell of a car for $100,000. Frankly, I'd rather buy an Audi R8 V8 gated shifter for $65,000 and call it a day. All right, let's see what we got here. Why do German cars hold their value so badly in America? Audi, VW go to really cheap when you buy them used. Well, I think every car, unfortunately, ends up getting cheap. So it's not just German cars. I think German cars hold their value pretty well. I mean, I'm a BMW, Porsche, Mercedes kind of guy, so I've owned a lot of them, and they typically hold their value pretty well. You mentioned your son does international business. What do you have to learn don't you have to learn another language fluently? Yes, you do. And he chose Mandarin. So, which I was like, wow, okay, good for you, son. I mean, obviously, they're the world's largest economy right now, and keeping our ass, filled up with N95 masks. So, he took Chinese and he did phenomenal with it. I was like, damn, I can barely speak English, so I don't know. I mean, but Mandarin was an excellent choice, and he did amazing at it. And, the fact that it doesn't have any grammar to it, there's no sentence structure, it's just all of the words and the way that they're strung together, makes it easier. Just from, you infer the meaning from the meaning of the words that are used in the sentence, which is, I think, phenomenal. I love that idea. Hello, don't worry about it. You know, you can say whatever the fuck you want. You don't have to worry about cursing on the channel. It's not a big deal. It's not being monetized, so it's not a big deal at all. So, does technical skills really require to start a tech company? Some tech companies have non-tech founders like Pinterest. Well, yeah, Jack Ma, but that's not true. I mean, Jack, was involved in a number of other efforts, all technical ahead of that, and had gained some experience as with other tech ventures. So he had some first-hand experience, even if he didn't have a technical degree. Hi, Gordon. How should teens spend their time productively by staying home due to lockdown imposed by the government? I think it's time to, learn another language or develop some side thing, or things like that. Even me. I mean, I'm learning various skills. I'm getting back into Bitcoin and Forex and a bunch of other stuff like that. So, it's, so for me, I'm studying various strategies. I'm looking at tax deferring strategies right now. I'm 55, so, there are some strategies for people over 50. There are some additional benefits to being over 55, which frankly I didn't even realize. I'll have to talk to my tax guy about it. But, I've really been consuming as much content as I can and going from there. The question is, what am I drinking? It's Grey Goose vodka, a little bit of vermouth, and a wedge of lemon. And it had ice, but it's 85 degrees out here, so unfortunately not very cold anymore. So, all right, let's... I noted your cigars last an entire stream most of the time. What's the longest you've smoked a cigar for, and what brand was it? All right. Yes, it's very contextual. Spoken Chinese isn't that hard. The rules are easy, but the writing system is the worst ever. Thanks for entertaining us and being genuine. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So we'll, I'll answer the cigar question in a minute. But so about being genuine, it's interesting. So I don't have, I'm not asking you to come to my Miami event, or I'm not asking you to buy my course for, $397 online. I'm not even asking you to buy my book on Amazon for $19.95 or $9.95 or whatever. I've got nothing to sell. There are no ads in any of this stuff. I'm not monetizing any of it. The opportunity is to get your questions answered, try to give you some straight advice. Again, it's all about the truth unfiltered. And, so in terms of authenticity and being genuine, I pretty much will answer any question you've got and give you the best answer I can if I have an answer. So I just think it's the best use of my time. And, I want to make sure, I'm going to spend the next 15 or 20 years that I have left at really productive times doing the best I can to help as many people as possible. And so that's what I want to do. And I wanted to mention one thing. So I made a comment on one of the last broadcasts about spending the next 10 or 15 years really primarily focused on helping women entrepreneurs. And so somebody asked me offline because they didn't want to ask it live. Why in the world, what's my special motivation for wanting to help women entrepreneurs? And it generated this whole thing about women in STEM for science, technology, engineering, and math. And did I think that women should have 50% of the jobs and things like that? That was just way too much. But I believe I share Jordan Peterson's approach to why there aren't more women in in STEM fields. And that's because women prefer opportunities that are relationship and people oriented, and guys are more thing oriented. That's why guys think girls love cars. I'm gonna buy this really expensive car and girls will like me. Girls don't give a shit about your car. So, and by the way, when you're going like 190 miles an hour past the beach, and when waving at all the girls, you're going too damn fast anyway. So it doesn't matter. They don't even know who the hell you are. So the whole idea of buying this really great Lamborghini or this really great Ferrari because you're going to impress some girls are impressed by the relationship that they have with you, the friendship, the just who you are, and things like that. They could give a shit less about your car. So it may get their attention, but chances are none of that really means anything to them. So that's why women don't do more STEM, is because they have zero interest in things. So engineering is about making things. They're going to make cars or airplanes, or they're going to do whatever. It's about making things. Well, women don't really care that much about making things. Typically, they care about the relationships and about helping people. That's why they're in childcare and nursing and hospitality and tourism and a bunch of other stuff. They care about people. And so because I think women-owned small businesses represent something like 12% at most of all the businesses. Women are like 50% of the people on the planet. So I think that that's a travesty. I think that women don't get the proper attention, positive attention from investors or from people that want to help or mentors. And I want to change that. I want to create better opportunities. Now, understand that my motivations are slightly self-serving, because my second company, Harmonia, sold to a group of investors in 2003, and I remained on the board until just recently. But the issue is that it was a woman-owned, minority-owned small business, and because of the special classifications afforded via the hub zone location that we were in, the fact that it was a woman-owned business, a minority-owned business, all of those opportunities afforded the company to be more competitive in contracts and to win more contracts and be given favoritism in certain contracts. And it was because of that the company was able to win major contracts and grow from where we were when I left as president and CEO. I left after I'd made my initial investment of $400,000 and turned the company back over to the majority shareholder and founder, who was the chief technology officer at the time. I spent a couple of years, at the helm of Harmonia when we first got, the funding. But, G3 had taken off at that point. We had a bunch of other stuff going on, and eventually brought in other investors, and the woman-owned angle allowed them to grow to where they are now, which is over $60 million a year in revenue. They outgrew the small business program at 26 or 27 million, and growing that is possible with either service-disabled veteran-owned companies. So if you're if you're a woman, or if you're a woman who's service-disabled, then I'm very interested in creating the right kind of opportunities for women entrepreneurs, just because I don't think that very many people get the guidance or advice that they're looking for. So that's my story. I think that also, the maximum potential income earning for women is between the ages of 18 and 29. And you can argue that as being sexist and things like that all you want. And certainly women will make money well into their 50s. But the reality is that when you're young and attractive and smart and motivated, there is literally nothing to stop you from making a metric fuck ton of money. So, I'd like to participate in helping you make that metric fuck ton of money. I'd also like to see you be incredibly successful. And I just don't think that women are being given the opportunity to realize that benefit. So that's why. All right, so let's see. Am I an angel investor in companies? What do you look for when investing in a company? Sure. So I look for what the right business model is. You have to have the right solution. You have to have the right business model. I care relatively little about the team. I know that's kind of contrary to most popular belief. I really care more about the business model and the financials in terms of where the money's going to get spent and how you're going to make money and things like that. In terms of opportunities, if somebody wants to go to gordonmiller.com and book a call, I'm happy to review an opportunity. I don't review opportunities for free anymore because I get 1,000 requests a day, via email saying, hey, can you review this opportunity? All you have to do is go to gordonmiller.com, book a call. You can even book a 30-minute call in May here. Since it's my kid's birthday, I dropped the price, I added a 30-minute call, which is half the price of the 60-minute call. So, go on gordonmiller.com and book a call. Let's talk about it. So, rightly so, these cigars last about an hour, a little over. The question was what was the longest I've smoked a cigar? There are some. The Perdomo Champagne is a full Churchill. And I forget what this ring gauge is. It's huge. And it takes about 2 hours to smoke one. Comes in a gold foil wrapper. It's amazing. It's mild, very smokable. And so, yep. Let's see here. What are some great books for sales? I don't know. Other than the stuff that Zig Ziglar did and some of the stuff that Dale Carnegie did, I don't have any current ones that I really prefer. All the books, there are two videos on books. If you just go to YouTube and search up Gordon Miller and books, you will get the two videos that have the book recommendations. If you are on Quora, you can go to Quora.com, go to my profile, and go to the Truth Unfiltered, or search on the Truth Unfiltered, and you'll get my space, and there's an answer in there that also has all the books posted. Would love to go live if possible. I appreciate that. We got about 4 minutes left. I'm going to try to get to some of the questions. Sir, please invest in Wellesley Virginia program, Wesley Virgin program. I don't know what that is. Inbox me. No, thanks, Nick. I don't inbox anybody. So, another traveler. All right. Let's see if you want to go live. All right, another traveler. Let's see what you got. We got a couple minutes left. Well, unfortunately, looks like he's already gone. All right, no worries. See what else we got on questions on YouTube here. Funny incident last week. Let's see. Let's see. Taiwanese American here. Speaking Chinese is a breeze, but learning how to write it is a nightmare. Yeah, I would imagine. Do you use any apps to help you in your daily business life? Yeah, most of the stuff that I use is all online stuff. I have actually started switching over from Microsoft Office to Google Docs and using the various infrastructures for Google. I know that exposes my information to the dark overlords of Google, but funny incident last week. You shouted at me for 2 minutes, repeating a question on live, got kind of angry and started writing on Quora. Now I have 45,000 views and 6 followers in 1 week. Hey, thanks. Well, that's what I'm here for, man. People, it's so funny too, because, I've got people that often tell me, man, you pissed me off. And of course that drives them forward to be successful, and they'll come back 6 months later and they're like, see, you were wrong. fuck you. And I'm like, okay, great. So, what did you end up doing? Well, I took your advice and I did this. And I'm like, well, great. I mean, if you took my advice and it worked out for you, then terrific. But, if me yelling at you got you where you needed to be or where you wanted to be, then terrific. I mean, that's what I'm here for. People think that, I'm just being abrasive or abusive just as an effect. It's actually how I am. And so my scores are posted on my LinkedIn for my Jordan Peterson 5 dimensions test. And I'm highly volatile. I'm highly disagreeable. So, it's just kind of who I am. But I often do it not only just for effect, but also to motivate people, because negative motivation is, one way. But anyway, let's see. I'm too scared to attempt 190. 140 is max. Yeah, well, my top speed is at Lowe's Motor Speedway in my '02 Porsche 911 twin turbo at a Porsche Club event, which was timed by the Porsche Club people, 186.4 miles an hour, and which is crazy. Stock tires, no nitrogen. I could have been killed. The tires could have just exploded because on the high banks, the pressure is like 10 times what it normally is. So I'm lucky I didn't get killed. But anyway, it's crazy. But my highest speed on the back straight from turn 7 to turn 10A and B at Road Atlanta is 184.6, a couple miles an hour slower. And that was in my 2000 Acura NSX. But yep, all club events. That was at NS Expo 2004. Also a verified time. Can you tell us about the tech that you use every day, right from when you wake up to the time I go to sleep? All right, well, I'll get to that here in a second. We got 2 minutes remaining on Instagram. What's your opinion on the purpose of life, and what's yours? Oh, yeah, so I'll be glad to do that. So if you guys are on Instagram, you're about to leave in 2 minutes. How do I go live? Well, another traveler, I tried to get you to go live. Instagram Live's about to finish here in 1 minute and 30 seconds. So if you want to, you can switch over to youtube.com/Gordon Miller, and I'm going to answer the rest of the questions. We still have about 10 people. Yeah, next time for sure. I mean, I try to get through the questions. Even for people who aren't still on anymore, they get their questions on, they come back and watch the video. So I'm happy to answer all the questions. I try to make sure I get every question in as much as I can. We got 1 minute left on Instagram, so I'll just say thanks so much, Instagram. I'm enjoying Instagram Live. I'm glad that I now have YouTube or Instagram IGTV up and running. Thank you guys so much. It's almost date night time, so wearing the Seiko 25 Joule today. Again, terrific movement. Posted it on Instagram earlier. If you want to book a call, you want to discuss what you're doing business-wise, you want some advice, whatever, go to GordonMiller.com, and you can book as little as a 30-minute call, and I'm happy to sit down and talk to you. It sends out a Zoom invite. We'll sit there and talk about whatever you want. So anyway, guys, I appreciate it, Instagram. Peace out. Thank you very much, guys. All right. So, all right, let's get back to some of the questions here on YouTube. Thanks, guys, for waiting. All right. So let's see here. So the tech from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. So as you can imagine, I'm replete with various technologies, and I have almost everything there is technology-wise because we're testing it for applications and stuff we're developing for clients. So I have both an Echo Spot as well as a Google Mini next to my nightstand, and I can ask Google or Echo whatever I want. So that's good. The Echo Spot doubles as my alarm clock and a display. It also shows the security cameras everywhere in the house. So the various security cameras that I use, I won't tell you which platform, but they're all controlled via Alexa. And so that's one key tech. The other key tech is I use my Apple Watch to monitor my sleep, and I collect data. I take my blood pressure on a regular basis. I posted that stuff on Instagram, a couple times this last week. I got my blood pressure numbers down to some amazing levels, and I'm just really very proud of how low it is. I mean, for a guy my size at my age to be 120/70, with a pulse rate of 58 is unheard of. So, but especially if I'm going to drink and smoke cigars. But hey, whatever. But all right. But in terms of that, after I get up, I have a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth-enabled scale that I track my weight. And during coronavirus lockdown, I've gained back 20 pounds or more of the weight I lost before. I'll get back down to where I normally should be and get back on track. I had been sick just before the coronavirus lockdown because I believe I had coronavirus actually from January the 14th through February the 7th. And so I wasn't able to go to the gym. And I was actually sick with pneumonia and bronchitis back in November and December. So there wasn't a whole lot of time in there that I was able to swim for about the last 6 months. So I'm looking forward to getting back in the gym. I actually went for my first massage today under social distancing rules. I wear a face mask going in, and my back is a mess from not having anybody work on it for the last 3 months. But I had somebody who did a great job today. My back feels terrific. I'm able to walk and bend over without pain, so it's terrific. In terms of other tech, I consume a lot of content. My iPad Pro 11-inch is something that I consume content on, as well as my MacBook Air. When I get ready to, I usually get up around 6 a.m. and feed the dogs and have my espresso, consume some content. I've gone live a couple times early in the morning as well, just for the hell of it. And then I typically get my meeting started around 10 a.m. I have a Microsoft Surface Laptop 2 that I use that's connected to my 4K monitor. It's a 43-inch 4K display. So I have 4 virtual screens of 1920 by 1080. Amazing configuration. I'll never be able to go back. I always used 2 separate HD monitors at 1920 by 1080, and having the equivalent of 4 screens is incredible. If I want to watch a movie or do something else when I'm kind of kicking back, it's always nice to do as well. But the configuration variations, I can see multiple pages of a proposal. I can work on things at the same time. I can have 4 things going on at the same time and see all 4. It's really amazing. I love it. And let's see. I have another Alexa in my office, so I can monitor things that are happening, elsewhere in the house. That's really about it. I mean, I use an iPhone 11 Pro Max, and I'm really bought into the Apple ecosystem. I have a server that I used to run Xcode and a bunch of other stuff on that is still a Mac server. It's on a Mac Mini and works great. So I have both Mac and PC environments. The stuff that I prefer doing on a Mac, and that's one of the reasons I'm probably. I have Office for the Mac as well as Office for the PC, but I really prefer using Google these days. I'm really kind of, if I were to throw my MacBook Air off the deck here and it hit a tree, there shouldn't be anything on there at all that, is of any value. So everything's all stored in the cloud these days. So, but let's see what else we got here. All right. Let's see. What's my opinion on the purpose of life? What's yours? So, when you turn 50, you start getting a different perspective on life. And that's why if you go to my website at gordonmiller.com, the phrase that's on the website is, it's your future, take control of it. And really, everybody is in charge of their destiny, their future. And I really just want to help the next generation of entrepreneurs do what they want to do what they do best, and help them be better. For me, it took me 14 years of experience, 7 before I started the company and 7 after, to really kind of get that going. And over the last 30 years, literally, I'd like to help people take that 30-year advantage and be where I am, where I was 10 years ago at least, in half the time. So instead of it taking 15 years and you guys getting there when you're 35, I'd like to get you there before you're 30, and especially if you're 20 already, it's like, or even 25. So it just really depends. I mean, there's lots of opportunity out there, and I really enjoy working with folks who are, in control of their own destiny. Really, it's a really powerful thing. But, it's all about helping people. It really is. So, all right. Gordon, looking back, do you believe your attitude towards women has changed since you became a father to 2 girls? I don't have 2 girls. I have 3 boys. So I joke all the time that God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. And I also have said that that I would have been a nightmare for my daughter. I had said before that I'd made some comment and somebody called me out on it, and she was right. I mean, she was 23, 24, and so she made the comment like, why would you treat, I gave my boys total freedom. There isn't we don't monitor their phones, we don't limit access to the internet. To be successful in this life, you have to regulate your own behavior. You have to make good choices. If you make bad choices, there are consequences to making bad choices. And so I taught the kids martial arts, and I taught the kids how to shoot a weapon. And so the comment that this one young lady made, which really kind of stuck with me, she's like, why would you treat your daughter any different than that? Why wouldn't you just equip her to handle herself and to handle the realities of the world, and then trust her the same way you do your boys? And I'm like, damn, that's true, and so, it's really interesting. I mean, I really find it rewarding to when people, when somebody comes to me and says, look, you're wrong, and here's why you're wrong, and here's what that feels like. And, because she had a very oppressive upbringing and things like that. Her father treated her like, she, couldn't date boys and couldn't do this and couldn't do that. And she rebelled when she finally got, out of the house and went to college and went nuts. And so I agree with that. I completely understand. So for me, I agree with that. I would like to think that I would have developed the kind of strong relationship with a daughter that would have allowed her to feel empowered to control her own situation in the same way that I've empowered my boys. And I think that, again, I think that's another reason why I enjoy helping female entrepreneurs. So many of them have overcome such amazing adversity. I hear about all the shit that they've had to put up with in their life and their upbringing, and not being supported by their parents, or not really being heard or understood. Nobody really cared, and things like that. And I believe in everybody's potential to be whatever it is that they're destined to be. I just want to make sure that everybody ends up becoming who they are meant to be, and so that's why. So let's see here. Where do I learn to invest and trade stocks? Do you paper trade or team with someone else? How do I find sources for genuine advice? So again, my stock strategy is investing in index funds, in a no-load mutual fund, which has no fees, on things like either TD Ameritrade or E-Trade or whatever you want as a platform. But I'm all about the Roth IRA, a tax-free investment opportunity, index funds of the S&P 500 and index fund of the Dow. Right now they're way down. Buy them now; they're on sale. The prices will go back up by the time you're going to retire, so don't worry about it. But yeah, I mean, again, it's that 40% in the S&P 500 index fund, 40% in the Dow index fund, 10% in cash and reserves, and 10% in speculative stuff like gold, cryptocurrency, and in hand-picked stocks. Like if you want to go buy Tesla stock, or you want to go buy Apple stock, or you want to go buy something else, then buy whatever stocks you want. And but if it all goes to zero, you won't have to worry about it because you have all the other stuff in more stable investments. I don't use a broker. I don't trust anybody else to do that for me. I invest all of it myself, and there are good videos out there. You just kind of have to feel your way through what's out there on YouTube. It's pretty hard, but all right, let's see what we got here. Do you think that everyone will need to learn code in the future to succeed? No, I do not. I think coding is probably going to be the least effective, because I think most code is going to be auto-generated by stuff that doesn't require you to know code. My 140 was on the interstate, though. Yeah, so AJ, my top speed on the interstate is 155, and that's only because my 89 BMW 750iL V12 was speed limited in the US to 155, and it was on a trip to the Rolex Daytona 24-hour race with 4 adults in the car and a week's worth of luggage. So we were on cruise control for 2 solid miles, which didn't take very long at 155 miles an hour. So that's my highest on-road thing. Let's see here. I do have 2 speeding tickets, one for 127 and a 35, and one for an excess of 120 and a 65. And those videos are posted on my YouTube channel. Just search Gordon Miller and ticket, and you should find it. Let's see here. I've been in a Fiat Punto going 150 kilometers. There you go. That was illegal, by the way. It was not driving. The wheels are not on the road. I know. I bet it was flying. I'm talking miles per hour. My speed translates to 220 kilometers an hour. Yeah. Trump 2020. I'll actually take anybody but Trump right about now. So appreciate that, but trust me. All right, guys, don't argue about your damn speed. All right. What are your pet peeves? My pet peeves are people arguing about kilometers per hour versus miles per hour in my goddamn chat. How about that? So I don't like people that duck, that complain about they want to kill themselves, or they want to end their life because they're sad. And nobody ever said life was supposed to be this great thing. I mean, life is kind of what you make it. And not everybody has the same opportunities and things like that. But people need to appreciate what they have, and not worry about what they have relative to what other people have, and things like that. I'm very happy, and my wife has always said that she would live with me in a refrigerator box under the interstate somewhere if it came to that. So, and I believe her, and it's one of those kind of things where I'm grateful for the people in my life, and I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've had, uh, and uh, and that's just the way that is. And so, yep, I think people just aren't grateful enough. I find that even when all the technical indicators make a stock seem promising, well, that's because, yeah. So, again, uh, I haven't checked to see what Marathon Oil is trading at today, but I recommended a month or so ago that all my followers buy Marathon Oil, and it almost doubled in price as of the last time I checked. I don't know what it's trading at today. Let's look at it. MRO is Marathon Oil. It's at 589. I bought it at what, 335 or 350 or something like that. So it's almost doubled, and just in the last couple of months. It's last 1 month. Yeah, it's up from. Let's see. I guess it's over the last 3 months. So it was a low of about 3.5 when I bought it, and it's now up to around 6. So I'd recommend people buy it. MRO Marathon Oil. It was trading near its 52-week low, and they were either going to figure it out, and they were going to recover and get back to closer to their 52-week high. And if you look at what the last 6-month window was, they were as high as 14. If they go back to 14 someday, then will have bought in around 3.5, and it'll go to 14, and I'll make 3 or 4 times my money. Anyway, it's not just about the analysis. I mean, the fundamentals and things like that are what they are. What's it like being in your 50s? Do you still feel the same compared to when you were in your 20s? So that's actually a great question. So my wife and I were talking about this the other day, because she's 53, I'm 55. I'll be 56 this year. She'll be 54, and in November. So we were. I was 33 when we met, and she was 31. And when we started having kids, I was 35 and she was 32, or 33. So we still feel like we're in our 30s. I mean, we still feel the same as we were when we met. And it's kind of interesting. I mean, yeah, we're older, and we've, I'm not as, young and handsome as I was, back in those days, but and everything. But it's one of those things where it's amazing, where did the last 22 years go and things like that. So it's pretty amazing, though. I mean, I love being in my 50s. I wouldn't trade it. Now, if I could go back and be in my 20s and keep all the knowledge I've accumulated up until now, I'd do it in a minute. Not if I had to do without, my wife and stuff like that and the kids. But, I don't, I enjoy being 55 right now. And so I'm not worried about it. So let's see what we got here. What do you think of entrepreneurs, people that profit by exposing other people's financial insecurities by offering self-help books while online courses that offer little or no useful info? So are you watching my YouTube watch list or something? That's I just saw the video earlier today on that, and they're referring to guys like Grant Cardone that have big events that they're trying to sell you stuff and things like that. I think that they use sales tactics that are not genuine, that also create artificial urgency, that also promote products that 90% of the people are never going to buy a piece of real estate, but they're going to blow $397 in this course. So I don't condone it. I don't like it. I am not doing it. Again, I don't have any courses to sell. These postings are ad free. You guys are enjoying this in real time. I'm just trying to answer questions and trying to help improve people's lives. So, I don't have anything to sell you. But let's see. Fair is an F word. Yeah, that's for sure. Are you still doing Patreon? No, I canceled my Patreon account, and I booted everybody off that was on it. So I hope nobody else signed up. I took all my offerings off. I don't want anybody to pay money for anything. Now, if you want to schedule a call with me by going to gordonmiller.com and booking something, then great. I'm happy to talk on the phone with you and happy to go through whatever you want. But I'm not charging a subscription fee or anything else like that. I think all that is bogus bullshit. So, thoughts on options trading? Do you consider it gambling? Yes, I do. There's some ways to use options and to bracket your position and other things like that. It's terribly complicated, and it's not something that I really enjoy, so it's not something I do. Talked about things being not as important as we think. What didn't you like about your 3-acre home? So that's an interesting thing. So you guys can Google or map it. I'm not going to buy it again, but we lived sorry, my nose is itching. So we lived at 9130 River Road, and in Richmond, Virginia. And if you do the search, you'll find the property history and things like that. We bought the house in 2004 and sold it in 2005, a year and 1 day, so we didn't have the capital gains tax to deal with, and nothing illegal about that. We pocketed about $300,000 on the transaction for 1 year of living in a 3-acre estate and doing about $100,000 worth of work to it, so it was great. I mean, I spent a year living, at the house, working from home. Spent most of the time in the pool, and enjoyed making a couple $100,000 through my regular job and making another $300,000 off of the house. So, the thing I didn't like about it was every time somebody drove through the brick gates in the front and pulled up to the circular driveway that was cobblestones, man, the price went up exponentially. That's like the roof that we put on cost like $35,000, and it was really rare, Black Hawk cedar, amazing roof. But that roof on any other house, any other neighborhood would have been like $20,000. And so we overpaid by about twice. And we redid all the plumbing, we redid all the electrical, we did a bunch of other stuff to the house, and everything was about twice what it would cost. When we went to go sell, the new owners had asked, well, give me a list of every service that you use to maintain the property, because the property was immaculate. And I made a list, and I had never made a list before because it was all in my phone and I had to pull all the numbers out and everything. 13 services, everything from the guy who, cleaned the jacuzzi, to the guy who cleaned the pool, to the guy who took care of the fish in the koi pond, to the irrigation guy, to the guy who cut my grass, to the plumber, to the electrician, to the security specialist who took care of the security system, to on and on and on and on. And it was insane. The list was just insane. Cost a fortune to live there. Of course we made all of our money back, but you take a look at the amount of effort that it takes to keep up a property like that. And I sold about a month or so before the crash really started in 2005. Really, the real crash came in 2008 and 2009. But I could see where the median income could no longer afford the median house payment under normal terms, and I knew the market was going to crash. I did that analysis, and I sold at the height of the market and got the most I could possibly get out of the house. And and I bought and paid cash for another house, and we stayed in it for a couple years, and until the market was about to correct again, and we bought the house we have here. We've been here for 14 years, and yeah. Let's see what we got here. All right. Let's see. Do you think we should build a startup and earn millions to make people's life better? Do millions really bring a big change to your life, or make you happy? Well, the conventional wisdom on that theory is that you can be happy and be rich, or you can be happy and be poor, and as long as you're happy. Of course, it's easier to cry in a Ferrari than it is to cry in a Honda. I you know, I came to a point in my life. I guess I was about 45, and maybe yeah, it was about 10 years ago, and I I was on this treadmill where it was all about make as much money as you can, and as long as we outdid last year's numbers and things like that. And then about 10 years ago, I was like, you know what? How much money do you really need to be happy? I mean, how much does it cost to, and my father took me through this exercise. It's like, okay, well, imagine buying the best house you can and the best cars you can and best furniture you can and everything else you want, and make a list. And we actually put numbers on paper. We sketched it out on the back of a cocktail napkin at, some bar we were at. And my father would always do this with me. And he goes, all right, well, and imagine how many vacations, what your travel you want to do, and just all of that. Figure out how much you'd need. And this was again back in, I would say, we went through this exercise when my father was still alive, so it would have been before '04, so probably around 2000, because that's when we really started making some serious money. When I made my first million on the military contract, that's really when I started focusing on making more money. And he's like, look, you're really focusing on the wrong thing. I guess it was really when we bought the estate on River, at 9130 River. And he's like, look, how much money do you need? And I put it all on paper, traveling around, spending $10,000 to go on vacation, eating out, breakfast, lunch and dinner, every day, everything else, and the total came up to around $10 million. And so in today's money, I redid the math here recently. Somebody else had asked me about it, and I think the math came down to around 20 million or something like that. So my father said, well, why would you ever need more than, say, 20 million, 10, 15 million, 20 million? Why would you want to make 30 million or 50 million? Because he asked me, what's your target? What are you looking for? And I was like, well, 50 million in cash would be great. He's like, why 50? I mean, you're not going to be any happier at 50 million than you would be, say, at 20 million, because you only need 10 million to be happy. You get everything you want, got the house you want, you got the cars you want, you got everything else you want. Why in the world would you care? And he's right. Beyond a certain point, more than an X amount of dollars doesn't make you any happier. And it's a lesson that I've learned, that stayed with me. And now that's why I'm pursuing things that I enjoy doing, that help other people, that are really less about making money, massive amounts of money. It's like people have asked, well, how come you're not, interested in being a billionaire? Well, because you don't need $1 billion. You don't even need $100 million. So, that for me is kind of, why would you do that? Why? Who cares? And I don't care, that's for sure. But yeah, so that's kind of it. All right, guys, it's been an hour and a half. These things get hard to upload here beyond a certain point. So take one more question. Do you think we should build a startup? Oh, okay, that was the same question. So, but I'm all about, in terms of building a startup that helps improve people's lives. It depends on what it is. Helping people realize their dream is kind of the thing that I've been focusing on. So anyway, thanks. Hello. I appreciate it. Look, I appreciate all you guys. What is my definition of happiness? I just decided, I made a choice to be happy. And being happy is about being grateful for what you have. I gave up the, $150,000 cars. I'm driving a in 2018 Volkswagen Passat GT, which has got the VR6 engine in it. I had a Bentley GTC that, was 240 grand. And I was no happier driving the Bentley than I was, driving, the Volkswagen, frankly. But same parent company. Bentley's made by Volkswagen Group. In fact, the Bentley Flying Spur shares much of the same overall dimensions and things like that as my Volkswagen Passat, and I save about 200 grand. So I don't know. I mean, I've learned to be happy and be grateful and things like that. And I think that's really the key, is really learning to appreciate my wife and my kids and my family and the opportunities I have and things like that. So it's really about the attitude of gratitude that I think is really what makes all the difference in the world. But anyway, it is now after 6:30, and it's time for date night. So my wife, I'm sure, is waiting. So I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. I still see there's just short of a dozen people out there. Appreciate you guys hanging in for the 90 minutes. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend here in the United States. And I have calls booked in for even on Monday. I guess the guys in Canada that booked the call for Monday don't realize it's a U.S. holiday, but it's all right. Even a buddy of mine in private equity still has a call scheduled for Monday. So it's all good, man. I enjoy this going live. I hope it's helpful. And if you have any other questions, you can always put them in the comments. I'll go through the comments and follow up. I'll add stuff to the next stream sessions. Love you guys very much. I really appreciate it. And thank you all very much. Have a great weekend. Thanks.